Shit, but no damn crap. All right. Forward button. All right. It has been a while. Get out of the way a little bit so you can see what we got in the background here. This is the image of the great Willie Mays sliding in the home plate ahead of the throw. He's clearly safe. The catcher doesn't even have the ball. All right. So today I got a few things to talk about. I hadn't been on in a while. I'm on a mission with other things. So I got to try to um, make sure that I get everything tightened up the way I want it to. But first thing I want to talk about, like I said, a lot's been going on in the sports world. See, last night that the Edmonton Oilers in hockey pushed the Stanley Finals to Game 7. Now, that's not something that's unusual. However, the way that they've done it is unusual. They were down 3-0 in the series, and now they've won the last three, and they're going to play a Game 7 probably Sunday for all the marbles. So whether or not the Oilers win the championship, they've done a great job to put themselves in a position to get to Game 7. Now, the thing about it, if they were to lose Game 7, it kind of puts into the mind of what's the point of getting to Game 7 if you're going to blow it? But I'm in the mind frame of until I'm dead, I'm not dead. So I feel the same way the Oilers do. I want to take it one game at a time, and I'm going to keep on winning. And next thing you know, I'm going to be in a Game 7, and I'm ready to play for a championship, whether I win it or not. But I'd rather go out in Game 7 than Game 4 sweep. Maybe the NBA players should take heed to what's going on in Edmonton. But the first thing I want to talk about, Mr. Antonio Brown came up on the Pivot podcast the other day. And as always, lately, he's been rather erratic. It's kind of hard to interview a guy like Brown because he's talking and it's hard to follow up on a question or get a straight answer out of him. And then when you do get to the point where you need to redirect or elaborate on something, then he starts to talk right in the middle of your question, which takes you somewhere else. However, there was some moments of clarity in this interview where you could make some good points. Brown went to talking about how the guys on the pivot can't do or say what they want to do because they have partners. Now, he's saying he's free to say what he wants to say. He's not tied like those guys are. And the subject came up when they were talking about Hall of Fame. Brown and some of the guys on the podcast feel like that Brown's numbers make him worthy of the Hall of Fame. He says what you do on the field should have nothing to do with what happens off the field. In a sense, I agree. But we're going to talk about that in a moment. But as he was saying that what you do on the field should only matter, he's contradicting himself by telling these guys that they can't say and do what they want to do. So Fred Taylor came back with the perfect comeback. He starts to come back and tell them, well, you talk about we can't say and do what we want to do. You think you were at the Hall of Fame. You just got through saying that what you did on the field should only matter. So Taylor, he was trying to ask him, well, what about the things that you do? And then Taylor dropped the ball. He said, well, the things you've done. He wasn't specific. What do you mean the things he's done? Pin the guy down and say what he's done. Because in his mind, he hasn't done anything. So when you keep saying the things you've done, Brown, you're going to look at that like I hadn't done anything and move on much in the way he did. But what Taylor should have said, look, man, the things you've done off the field make people think you crazy as hell. And because of that, the likelihood of you getting into the Hall of Fame is zero. What do you say to that? but they wouldn't do it. Ryan Clark chimed in, Cannon Crowder chimed in, same kind of question. The things you've done, the things you've done. Tell him what he did because he don't think he's done anything. And just like he said, they have partners and they can't say exactly what it is they want to say. And the same thing with him. He can't do and say anything and then expect that not to matter when it comes down to humans voting. Now, if it was a computer voting for a Hall of Fame, that's different. But when you put these images out, the last thing that they saw of Antonio Brown in a football uniform was him acting like a donkey while running off the field. Those people are never going to forget that. So that's not to say he won't get into the Hall of Fame. He just may get into the Hall of Fame. But I'm saying to you that the likelihood is very slim based on the way his behavior and how erratic it was later on. Now, there's been questions about whether or not he has CTE. Well, if he has CTE and it comes out, say, 30 years from now, um, and he hadn't been in the Hall of Fame, then they may say, well, this guy did deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because his behavior is attributed to CTE. But that's just something to think about. But in the meantime, I just wish those guys would have pinned him down and told him exactly the way people see him. And even though they didn't ask him that, Brown did give an answer to it without being asked. He's basically saying that he doesn't really care about what people think about him, only the people that care about him, mainly his family and his kids. I understand that. And the piggyback on that, he seems to be like he's happy with his situation. And I get the feeling that he is not broke. And because he's not broke, and he's enjoying his kids, I think he seems to be somewhat in a good place. For his sake, I hope he is, because his behavior is going to prevent him from getting the endorsements that could have made it much, much easier for him. But I'll keep my eye on that. But speaking of erratic behavior, if you saw a couple months ago, Ryan Garcia beat up on Devin Haney to win the championship. Well, actually win the fight. He couldn't win the championship because he came into the fight overweight. And before the fight, he tested dirty on dope. And during the fight, after the fight, same thing. Because of that, the New York Athletic Commission or Boxing Commission has banned Garcia from fighting for a whole year. Also, Haney had his record restored because the fight was pretty much vacated with no contest. So the same thing is not happening. Haney know he lost the fight. Garcia know he won it, but the circumstances surrounding the whole atmosphere of the fight makes it look suspicious the whole time. And because of that, it's not going to count against Haney. That was just an exhibition match where both of them made a whole lot of money. The question is, will they fight again in the future? But after a year, which is an awful lot of time when you're in the prime of your career, that's a long time off. But at the same time, it's not really a whole lot of time nowadays in boxing because those guys don't box several times in a year like they used to. Garcia said he's thinking about going to the UFC, to keep himself in shape and, gain some more skills. So when he come back next year, he'll be ready to go. So the commission has given him a year vacation from the sport and time to get his mind right. But that banned substance, osteron or something like that, gives you the gorilla confidence to go in there and beat somebody your size. Can he fight like that when he's clean? Well, Garcia whipped him. I'm not Garcia, but Davis whipped him. And speculation that Haney would have done the same thing had he not have been doped up. But he has to come back now after this year. And if Haney wants to fight him again, he has to come in there and prove himself again. But of course, anytime you fight somebody the second time, it'll be a completely different fight. And with Haney, you have a little bit of extra motivation to see Mr. Garcia in that square circle. But that's another thing coming down the pipe. Next, the Boston Celtics. They won the 18th championship last week by beating the Mavericks in 5 games. So much hype around the situation and the way that the games unfold, they have a certain smell attached to them as far as I'm concerned. Here's the Celtics jump out to a 3-0 lead. nip and tuck games the whole way, and you know they're still a better team and they're able to pull away in the end. But then you get to game four, and then all of a sudden the Mavericks look like they're unstoppable. Everybody's all excited. They're going to come back and win this series in 7 games. Well, game five comes up, and all of a sudden Boston turns back into the best team again, and they win by almost 20 points. I don't have any problem about who wins the championship, but the way that these games unfold makes you think that the fix is in. How is it Dallas? They can't do anything right. All of a sudden, they do everything right, and the Celtics can't do anything right that night, and they beat them by 38 points in a closeout game. So the people are saying, well, they just had a big head and they just already won the championship, so they just come in there coasting. No, 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 no. When you get a guy on the ropes, you better knock him out. Because if you don't knock him out, they got a chance to come back. Look at what's going on in hockey. I already mentioned that. The Florida Panthers were up 3-0 on the Edmonton Oilers. Now they're going to game 7 because I don't know if they let up or not. Maybe the Oilers just say you just can't beat us and we're not going out without a fight. But whatever the case is, going to game 7. Once they won game 4, they had a chance. Then they come back in game 5. If you win game 5, you got a chance. So on and so forth. Now it's winner take all. That's why when you got a guy down on the ropes, you put him out. The Celtics, in my opinion, I think they got a call from the league office. And I think the league office told them, let's extend this game. Every game that we play in the NBA Finals is worth billions. And that trickles down to everybody. So we know you're going to win the series. So just go ahead and let the Mavericks, do pretty much what they want to do. So I mentioned this several times, and I've been building up to this. And I got a comment from a guy, Caden F. He wants to know, WTF, why are we talking about conspiracy? What conspiracy are you talking about? Well, I explained that clearly to you, Mr. Caden, if you see this. Everything is about money. These new players today, I don't think they really care if they want to lose. Yes, they want to win a championship. Well, if you're making $200 million a year to play basketball and you don't win a championship, are you really hurt? Absolutely not. You got me this year. It's just like in law. You beat me in this court case, but I got you next week on that tax thing. I'm going to whip you. Meanwhile, I'm going to the bank to cash this check from this client. So whether they want to lose, it doesn't really matter because they're all getting paid. So the conspiracy that I'm talking about is the league want to be on the TV as much as possible. They got game 4, and if it ends in a sweep, game 5 will bring much bigger ratings because they want to see if the Mavericks can bounce back and do the same thing, much in the way the Edmonton Oilers did. So he also said, well, why are we talking about it? If it's fixed, why are we watching? Well, it's no different than some guy betting on the game, or maybe my first cousin plays on the Mavericks. Or I grew up in Boston, always been a Celtics fan. Or you're a Lakers fan and you know you got 17 championships. You don't want your hated rival, the Celtics, to beat you to it. This is why we watch. Case in point, Magic Johnson came out and said congratulations to the Celtics, but I don't like it because the Lakers should always be ahead of the Celtics. Now, the Celtics have a long lead over the Lakers when it comes to NBA Finals, not even close. They've beaten the Celtics before, but not like the Celtics have beaten them. And most of the championships have come on the head of the Lakers. So if you're going to compare apples to apples, the Celtics have been a better organization than the Lakers. Now, that also brings it to the point about these young players now not really caring about whether they want to lose because they got the money. So why do they really care? I don't think they do. And because of that, guys like Magic and his era and my era, we're considered as dinosaurs because we actually care about winning the game. Now, one other point Mr. Caton said, he said, well, there's no evidence of an NBA player coming out and speaking on these games being fixed. Well, that's not true. I saw an interview from Shaq a couple of weeks ago, which happened a few years back, and he called the NBA, it stands for nothing but acting. Shaq said that now. Mr. TV broadcaster, post game commenter, he said that. Hall of Famer, nothing but acting. And I made some of these comments before I saw that interview. So, Mr. Caton, you and people just like yourself, do a little bit more research. Think about it. If he paid you $1 million to run the Boston Marathon, and when you ran and you got up to that hill right outside Fenway Park, and you've been paid $5 million to run this race, whether you win or lose, you look up, you've been running for 20 miles, and you see that long uphill climb. If you say to hell with it and don't climb that hill, did you get paid? Yeah, you wanted to finish that race, but when that hill hit you in your mouth, you look back and say, man, I got paid. Sit down and think about it. You don't worry about it anymore. That's gone. And this is the same way these guys are looking at it now. Only the very best from college probably is going to go to the pros now because the players that probably wouldn't have made the pros are making NIL money. So it has now become worth it to play college sports. So it used to be where if I don't make it, man, what was this all about? I wasted my life or put my body on the line and still didn't make it. Well, now you can get on the right situation in college and get paid. Don't need to go to the NFL or the NBA. Yeah, they call it ashtray money, but that ashtray money can make the difference to the right person. You don't take so much. Take that money and you invest it. Hey, while you out there bashing your head and get killed, I'm sitting on a boat somewhere because my investments paying for everything. I hadn't lifted a finger in years, but you out there getting your head cracked though. All it takes is the right amount of money put away at the right time, and you're set. Think about it. But I just want to say that the Celtics, they are the champion, and you can't tell me because I've been watching this for over 40 years that some of these games aren't fixed. And even if I didn't believe that before, when somebody like Shaq says the NBA is called nothing but acting, it gives you cause to think about what's really going on here. Never forget, the bottom line is it's all about money. Finally, the Cardinals and the Giants locked up probably the millionth time the other day, and the Cardinals ended up winning 6-5. This game was on Thursday, but it wasn't in St. Louis, nor was it in San Francisco. They played this game in Birmingham. Birmingham just happens to have the oldest ballpark in the nation. It is home to historically the Negro Leagues, where a lot of the all the famous Negro League players played. Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby, uh, uh, Henry Aaron, but Willie Mays just happens to be his neighborhood ballpark. This is where he grew up. I think he said Fairfield, Alabama, and all that's in the close by Rick Wood Field. But what this was a tribute to the Negro Leagues. And it just so happened that this game's been scheduled for a while, and Willie Mays, who's 93 years old, was hoping to make it to this game. But just like the tribute that was supposed to go to Jerry West in game 3 of the NBA Finals, he died that same day. Well, Mays passed 2 days before this baseball game. So he's not going to be able, he wasn't able to see this historic game, the first time the Major League has played a game in Rick Wood Field. But like I say, this has been the oldest field and a lot of memories from those fields. And while you're talking about the Negro Leagues, I saw where Reggie Jackson said it was hard to come back to Rick Wood because of all of the memories. Well, Alabama is deeply seated in the South, and you know about the history of segregation in the South. So you can just imagine the stories that Reggie Jackson could tell, and Willie Mays, and especially somebody like Jackie Robinson. Now it was great to see these guys come out. They had their little throwback uniforms, looked like St. Louis were imitating the old Browns, and it was a good environment, and it went well for the Major League Baseball. But I think it would have been much better had a guy like Willie Mays able to make it to that game. But that's just the way fate is. Sometimes you just can't get there. And his spirit was there. And if you can see behind me here, this is just the image of him beating the throw to the home plate there. And that's not Rick Wood Field, but this is when the guys they didn't wear batting helmets back then. But he's clearly beating this throw. Throw's not even close. Speed makes the difference in all sports, and you see Willie Mays had a whole lot of it. He also had a big bat, and anything close to him in an outfield, he was going to grab. That catch in the World Series over the shoulder, as a great catch and considered one of the greatest in Major League history. So um, the timing is just a little off. I wish he could have made the game. He had been planning to get there, and he just wasn't able to make it. But to say, hey, kid, um, I wish he could have been there. But like I say, I don't know if they're going to come back every year now and do the same thing with these All-Star games or tributes to the Negro Leagues. But it's a good thing overall. I don't have anything much negative to say about it. I just wish Willie Mays could have been there and just to see what's going to happen next. Are they going to schedule more games here, or I know the Birmingham Barons played there, so I don't know if this is the field that Michael Jordan played on when he was with the Barons. But a lot of history with Rick Wood Field. A lot of it's negative, but that goes along with the times. But Willie Mays, that's his home field, and just so happened he passed this week at 93. Life well lived, but timing is just a little off for him. But happy trails to the Say Hey Kid. All right, just to recap, Antonio Brown and his erratic behavior lend the question, does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Maybe numbers wise, but will his behavior prevent him from getting there? He doesn't think it should matter. I think the numbers should be what they are. Either you a Hall of Fame worthy or not, based on what you do on the field. But when you start talking about humans doing the voting, then they're going to take into account the way he's acted over the years. And I think that's going to hurt him. So unless it's found that he's had CTE, maybe he can get in on a senior ballot 40 years from now. But I'm a little worried that he's not going to get there. Because if a guy like Pete Rose, who, if there's no Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, there shouldn't be a baseball Hall of Fame. If he doesn't get in, um, I think Antonio Brown, he can kick rocks on that. But that's just my opinion. Garcia being banned, some people want him banned for life. I don't think he should be banned for life. Boxing has always been a corrupt sport, and it's going to continue to be. And I think Garcia has a lot to answer for, especially to Mr. Haney. But will Haney and his camp trust Garcia enough to fight him again? But if they don't, I say, well, let's square it off in the middle of the ring, somewhere out in the boonies. Uh, just nobody around, just a few cameras, and then we'll see what takes place. But we gotta get into the ring again to see who's the better fighter somewhere. And the Celtics, Magic Johnson is hot that the Celtics won again, but he's from a different era. He cared. These young players don't. And then saying goodbye to Willie Mays to say, hey, kids. So have a good journey, Mr. Mays. Meanwhile, this has been Sports for Real. Get back at you when I got more to rap about. I'm out.